Welcome to how to strategically scale your SOC response and automation by operationalizing the data from your EDR and XDR systems. I'm your host, Dallas Young, the Senior Technical Marketing Manager at Torq. There will be a question and answer section at the end, so feel free to add any questions that you have in the Q&A tab, and they'll be answered then. So we're joined today by John Olczyk, Senior Principal Analyst at ESG, and Marco Garcia, the Field CTO at Torq. John has over 30 years of technology experience and is widely recognized as an expert in all aspects of cybersecurity and focuses on cyber risk management, security operations, and managed security services. Marco has over 20 years of experience across the cybersecurity space, including a background in software development and engineering, and over the past decade has led global engineering and architectural organizations in solving complex challenges in SOC operations. Now with that, I'm going to hand it over to John to kick off the webinar.
Thanks so much, Dallas. Marco, nice to talk to you again.
Nice talking to you, John, as well.
And our topic today is how to help automate your SOC by operationalizing the data from your EDR and XDR system. And so I guess it really starts with, what are you seeing in terms of EDR and XDR deployment? And then I can talk about that as well.
No, excellent. No, we see it quite a bit. Almost every organization has an EDR nowadays. It's a must-have now if you really want to build a security practice and know what's happening behind the scenes, right? The being able to see in the events at the network level is not enough anymore. So now the problem has gotten into like all the endpoints. Now you have a lot of data that is getting built and is getting added into all of the systems, like a SIM data getting added from other areas, like for example, identity and access management, cloud services. And now whenever you have to do an investigation, now it takes a little bit more time. So therefore, the usage of XDR as well. But to your point, EDR and XDR, highly used technologies nowadays.
Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing. I guess there's some subtleties though. EDR, yeah, you're right, it's everywhere. Although what I see at different organizations is they haven't implemented it on 100% of their endpoints. And those endpoints, maybe they haven't done their max, maybe they haven't done a certain business unit, maybe it's the Linux systems that haven't been, they haven't installed on. And then the other thing is, with all of the workloads moving to the cloud, you can put an EDR agent in the cloud. That's not the most elegant solution. A lot of the cloud data comes out of APIs and specific cloud tools. So in my view, EDR is great, but it doesn't give you complete coverage. Is that consistent with what you see?
That's correct. This is exactly what I was saying. Now they're starting to look into other solutions to try to add more context into the coverage of the data that they have, the deployments that they have. Maybe when they have desktop as a service and in the cloud, when they have certain workloads running in the cloud as containers, maybe as everywhere, there's different solutions now that they're looking at beyond EDRs. And we see some of the EDRs also expanding into some of that coverage as well in the industry. But yes, there's multiple point solutions that right now they're being used across it, and that's exactly what we see also from our side.
Yeah, and actually that begs the next question, is that you're seeing EDR sort of extend into other areas, and sometimes that's called XDR. And so I'm wondering, so first, what's your definition of XDR?
It changes. I'll give you my take, John, and then I'll tell you what I'm hearing from different people as well, if it's okay.
Okay.
So coming from the vendor side, in the past, I worked for a cybersecurity company. XDR during that time, it was a technology that allowed to correlate all the data sets that we had across all the different products in the ecosystem. And we had many products out there. And it was a way to provide customers with what they said, it was like the ability to help them find a needle in a haystack, because there was so much data now from different point products cloud, cloud security, EDR, and many components that they needed to correlate all together, including firewall logs, including all those things. And therefore, from the vendor side, no, they've been called like a XDR, right? In order to collect all of those data sets together and build that coverage in order for them to find, again, that needle in a haystack. Now, for what we see customers adopting as well, and for what I've seen getting out into the market, there's different technologies also that they're coming up with their own XDR solutions in order to extend the ability for you to search for what is the most critical component. Like take a point on an EDR, right? An EDR out there, now they're extending into XDR in order to give you the ability to search across the logs and add intelligence on top of it in order to provide more value, right? And then there is also like the context of the XDRs that they're completely vendor agnostic, that they're trying to penetrate some areas on the market. So there's three different approaches, and maybe even some more that I see out there. But for what I seen on the vendor side, it has been a lot around like a consolidation of data sets. That is what we see the most, and for the ease of searching those data sets in a contextualized manner, that gives you some contextualized data at the end that you can prioritize.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself, but having said that, it's still very confusing. And
yes.
So let me give you some data points. So we asked a sample set of 376 security professionals what they believed XDR was. 55% said it's an extension of EDR. 28% said it's a detection and response product suite from a single vendor. And 16% said it's an integrated and heterogeneous security product architecture. Now, I tend to believe that. I tend to believe it is an architecture because different people are coming at it from different angles, vendors and users. However, I've gotten out of the definition business. It's kind of fruitless to do this, I think, and it is, XDR is going to be different things to different people. But the point that you made about XDR getting coordination across the data sources and controls, doing consolidated analytics, providing some kind of process automation, so maybe even SOAR light and very light capabilities. That's kind of where I see it, and so from a SOAR perspective, and we're here to talk about operationalizing the data from those systems. What do you see?
No, from the SOAR perspective, it's an interesting component, right? While XDR means extended detection and response, we see a lot of the system focusing a lot on the extended detection, and the response side is a bit light on that angle. And to your point, like very light SOAR capabilities that we see on that side. So we see a lot of customers coming to us with the needs in order for them to grab those findings and create a response capability out of it, aka an automation mechanism, in order to respond to the data sets that are coming. Because now, even though XDR is helping them build the funnel of events and focusing on the right areas, they still need to be worked at, right? They still need to try to meet that SLA, perhaps the SLA in which they have that 1 minute to detect, 10 minutes to investigate, and 60 minutes to remediate. They're still trying to meet that SLA itself, and while they get all of those results now available to them, the volume of results don't become smaller. They continue to become larger. So the organizations are coming to us in order to go in and say, hey, what can you do in order to help us expedite this metrics, like in order to get to the remediation point faster, maybe to expedite the investigation point, make detection a simple component that comes in very, very quickly as you get this data. So to back to your question, John, it is definitely a component of a need in which the XDRs provide you amazing detection capabilities build the funnel for you, but it still lack in certain areas on the response side. At least they're very light on that area, and that's where we see our customers coming up and looking for solutions, looking for options in order to help them meet those metrics.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I'll give you a little bit more research here. So when we asked what are the detection capabilities, or why would you look at the detection capabilities of XDR? 51% of those that we surveyed said that current tools struggle to detect and investigate advanced threats. So clearly there's something that we're not doing or we don't have that's persuading people to look beyond that at XDR. And XDR does. It extends the aperture from just the endpoint or just the network to other areas. The thing to me, though, Marcos, is that there are still other areas, right? The attack surface is growing. We're using more cloud applications and services. We have third-party connections to our systems. If XDR continues to grow and encompass all of those things, it becomes this monolith. It becomes this monster, and we're absolutely not there yet. So how do you tie things together? Well, XDR can help you tie things together, but you still have to look at threat intelligence. You still have to look at SIM logs and other types of logs. You may be looking at IOC devices. IoT devices in a healthcare or a manufacturing organization, and that's where I think the power of SOAR is best. Are you seeing that in your customer base?
Oh, we do absolutely, especially around the area in which when they get the results from an XDR, they want to also drive it against maybe their own internal intelligence. They want to extend that across other vendor intelligence components that they look at. They extend the results, the reporting capabilities that they have out of the XDR in order to meet those metrics that I mentioned earlier. All of those components is exactly what you mentioned, John. We're seeing it a lot. Interesting enough, a lot of focus in threat intelligence. A lot of focus on threat intelligence for sure. And then the IoT component is becoming highly interesting as well, because it's another area of it's another vector of compromise, right? That they can lead into compromises into the organization. So IoTs have become a very challenging point for organizations, because there might be IoTs in the medical space that they cannot be patched right away. And how do you detect all of those components and be able to keep up with your mean time to remediation when you can't patch those systems? So what capabilities do you put in place at that point in order to sort of remediate, to kind of like a virtual patch those components? So all of those things are things that are coming up very often. But yes, no, I agree with you, John, completely.
Yeah, you talked about threat intelligence. I'm in the middle of some research on threat intelligence, and what I'm finding is that threat intelligence programs are immature. They are very tactical. So we're not looking at things like which adversaries are attacking us and what their tactics, techniques, and procedures are. We aren't using threat intelligence strategically at the business level. And our threat intelligence life cycles are pretty basic and not very formal. So it's interesting to me that you talked about the intersection between threat intelligence and SOAR. And so I'm wondering if you can be more specific or give me a little bit more color on what you're seeing.
Yes, the context of threat intelligence with SOAR, there's a need of enriching the data sets that are coming in order to validate whether it's an interesting data set for them to look at and if it makes sense to their business. That is kind of like the use case that they're trying to solve. Usually, and then we ask the question, it's like, well, don't you have some of the data that is coming from the XDR, right? And then the answer that we get from many customers that are using threat intelligence for this, yes, But sometimes the data that we get from certain systems lack context and lack the context whether this makes sense for our business internally. So therefore, they are trying to use other sources in order to bring that context into life. Is this relevant to me? Right? You have an IOC that came in and started to affect maybe some Linux devices, and then you only using Mac. Is this relevant to me? No, should I be spending time in investigating this component in order to reduce that time that it takes for investigating those areas? So that is one of the areas of context that they look into the area of threat intelligence in order to try to reduce the amount of time that is taken from investigating some of those alerts, because that's the biggest point that that companies struggle in order to make contextual decisions based on the data that they have. And threat intelligence is being used in order to enrich that data set, and including internal threat intel, not only vendor related threat intel data sets that they have. I have seen a rise on organizations using internal IOCs that they are maintaining and they're keeping up, and this is an interesting subject, because it's helping them increase the value that they bring to their business and the time that it takes for them to finish up an investigation from their side.
Yeah, and I mean the scenario you're describing is very intuitive, but I think, in my view, the hard part is it's not just bringing the threat intelligence in, it's understanding all of the threat intelligence. So like you say, you have internal IOCs, you have RSS feeds, you have threat intelligence from websites, you have vendor threat intelligence, you have commercial threat intelligence feeds, open source. And somehow you're trying to get all that information associated with an alert. And to some extent, EDR and XDR do that, but you really do need the SOAR, and that's really where SOAR shines. And one of its use cases is bringing all that in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yes. Especially driving it around different data sets that might not be covered within the XDR itself. Like you want to drive it across all of those components to make a determination. That is one of the biggest use cases that we see from our side. Enriching and then making a determination out of the findings that you have at the end. Let's say that you drove it through 5 engines, or you drove it through 5 data sets or 10 data sets. At the end, you want to make a determination on that, and not only making just like a black or white determination, John. What we see, interesting enough, is that organizations are grabbing those findings and consolidating the data with a suggestion for the analyst to make the determination whether this is malicious or not. So that's another point that we're seeing an increase on the human in the middle component that helps them pretty much the whole correlate all the data sets together, make a suggestion, but let the user also put their point in the at the end, put their stamp in order to say, okay, this looks like something that needs to be handled or not. So that's an additional component in order after like correlating all those data sets that we see.
Yeah, and really what we're talking about here is alert triage to some extent. What I'm finding is those tier 1 analysts, bless their souls, they're overwhelmed with alerts. It's really, I mean, that's one of the reasons why XDR is appealing, is because it appears to be a central workbench for those tier 1 analysts. And it can be, especially in smaller organizations. But how do you, in a bigger organization, how do you build on top of an XDR or an EDR solution to enable those people to do more? Because if they're overwhelmed, if they just escalate everything, we're in for a world of hurt.
Absolutely. It comes down to automate automating the tasks that you can automate, like automate the automatable, right? In certain things, there are certain IOCs that you know that they're going to be malicious and bad. You can automate some of those tasks. From an analyst perspective, from a tier one, automate some of those repetitive, tedious tasks, like going in between screens, clicking here to look at details of a system. Many of those are repetitive tasks that analysts are doing that taking them even 5 minutes for a task to look at something, 5 minutes for going in and searching for something, 3 minutes to go look at those components. All those minutes add up and gives them a lot less time in order to do other components. So definitely going in and removing all of those areas, those even as small as they seem, giving them more time back is highly important. And we have seen many organizations that have those type tier one operations focus on those components, and it gives them a lot more capacity from the tier one and frees up some of the tier two analysts as well to do some of the threat hunting, focusing on the right areas from that side. So yeah, definitely enabling those tier ones, not just doing manual work. It has been one of the trends that we have seen so far.
Yeah, that's consistent with what I've seen. Two things that I think are big issues for 2023 that I'd like to bounce off you. One is not new. Well, they're both not new, but one is the skill shortage. So in this economy, we're just not making progress, and there are a lot of open recs. I read the other day that the city of New York has a cybersecurity division, and they're operating at 80%. So 20% of the jobs aren't filled, and that's not uncommon in a security operations center. So that's trend one, and then trend two is scale. I think in 2023, security operations, you won't hear those two words without the word scale associated with it. So I've got too few people, and I'm dealing with more and more threats. My attack surface is growing. How do I do that? And I know XDR might be part of that solution, EDR too, but what are you seeing?
No, absolutely. Actually, I got off a call with a CISO just yesterday, and we were talking about scale. And the CISO started a call in which he said, "Hey, look, no, the number of events have not gotten smaller. There's not less events, there's more events, even though we have invested on technologies like XDR in order to help us with this angle. But we're not getting less events, and we unfortunately don't have more people. So why are we talking to you today? Is because we're looking to optimize the way that our SOC operates. So there's a big focus in order to try to combat the skills shortage with technologies that helps them to be more efficient, right? And automation is one of them, right? Automation is one of them. Perhaps going in and investing on the proper talent that allows them to fulfill that automation wish, right? And now what we are seeing in the industry is that while the companies want to automate, they are having trouble finding the right level of skills in order to fulfill that automation need that they have. And this is what companies are talking to us very often into how can we help them improve their automation mechanism inside the company, but they have the problem with skills in the industry itself. And when they talk to us, they end up finding a happy medium in order to help them get to that component of automating as much as possible from that side, because it's a key priority on the eyes of many of the executives and CISOs that we are talking about, because the skill shortage continues to be out there for many companies. And not only not being able to find people that want to work, but being able to find the right quality of people, and depending on what you want to do in the field, like finding security people and finding people that know how to code is very hard. But if you find security people with a mindset of knowing how to operationalize things, there are ways to do those areas. And this is part of the conversations that we have with a lot of the executives, John, on our side. How can we help you get more out of what you currently have, right? Without you having to go in and searching for that talent that might or might not be there. So many conversations we have around that side.
Marco, that's a great point. And I've done research on the skill shortage for years, and too often people think of it as staffing, right? Mm-hmm. I don't have enough people, but it's not just that, it's skills too. So I don't have enough people, and I may not have people with the right skills, just as you said so eloquently. And that was reflected in some research we did when we asked, well, what's the biggest impediment to automating or security operations process automation? And the biggest thing that people said, 39% of security professionals that we surveyed said software development skills. So our security operations team doesn't have the programming skills to develop run books and workflows. So you're spot on, and that's the big bugaboo that I've seen historically with SOAR is a toolkit, or traditional SOARs are a toolkit, and they require formal projects, they require project management, they require specific skills, and typically they require a lot of customization. In an economy, the headwinds of the economy that we have, and with the skill shortage, that's just not a good recipe now. So you want to be able to enable those people, and that's it. I take it that's what Torq can do.
Exactly, yes. And this is why many companies are talking to us about this specific topic. Because, and funny enough, John, even companies that have the software development skills are talking to us, because what they realize is that that all of that project management, all of the maintenance that goes into maintaining the platform, how to scale it, because to the component of scale, right? That we're talking about, how to scale it. You got more events now. How do I scale it? Now you don't have to only know software development, but now you have to know systems design and try
Right.
to put inside of the organization. It has become challenging. So even for people that have the skills, they're looking for ways to optimize their the way that they can automate things, because it's no longer like a script that I'm running. Now it's a framework. Now it's a framework. Now it's a framework that you need to tie to multiple points across the entire ecosystem that you might have in the organization. And now the framework is highly critical to the success of your business. So this is why now they're coming to us and saying, hey, no, how can Torq assist in this type of situation? And then we have many customers that have even come to us because they want to automate more with the skills that they have at the moment, whether they have software development skills or not, and we're able to assist them with that component in order to help them pretty much be automating more without having to have all the friction, and scale more from that aspect. So we do see it quite a bit, John, in both angles. Yes, people that know they have skills, development skills, and people that don't have development skills. We see both sides of the equation.
That doesn't surprise me at all. And EDR, we're talking about EDR and XDR. EDR added a degree of analytics capability, a degree of incident response capability at the endpoint, but we still had network solutions and email solutions and SIM. And so the thought was, well, XDR will unify those. And to some extent it does. One of the big responses when we asked people what they wanted out of XDR was they said they wanted a common workbench. But again, XDR is going to be limited to the data sources and the controls that it's programmed to use. And one of the kind of underappreciated things of SOAR that I find is that it does provide a common workbench, and it does kind of it does give you better SOC communications. Talk about that a little bit, because I think that's an underappreciated aspect of SOAR.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the the first topic that you mentioned, the common workbench, is very important to keep your analysts working out of the same platform itself without having to jump from console to console to search for things. That's when it becomes very inefficient. And this is where the SOAR solutions help a lot by providing the ability for when an event comes in, to search perhaps across multiple data sets that might not be from the same vendor, which is a challenge that we see across many organizations. Most organizations don't have the entire stack from one vendor. They have multiple vendors to go in and search, even multiple EDRs for that matter, right? So when they have to do an investigation across an event that came in, they have to search across multiple EDRs. They have to search across perhaps multiple cloud infrastructure providers. They have to go in and search across different areas, maybe even SASE providers, right? That they need to go in and gather some of the data. Having a common place and a common framework that allows them to pull all the data together when an event comes in has been highly interesting to them and key for their success. And this is where the SOAR technologies shine a lot, because they are the glue that connect all of those things together. Right? Regardless whether you have a vendor X on one side, vendor Y on another side, whether you have a cloud, whether you have on-prem, whether you have any of those components, that is what allows you to connect them together and gives a much operational efficiencies to your team. This is why that common workbench is highly important to them, for them to use it as the mechanism for them to do the day-to-day operational work. And some companies choose to do it within the SOAR, like a single view within the SOAR. And there are many companies that say, hey, I want to do an external solution in order to do my my ticketing pipeline, what they will call it, my workbench itself. And both solutions are completely valid, and we see both of them in that side of the equation from the workbench component. Now, the next component that you were mentioning, John, it was around SOC communications, right? SOC communications. There are two mechanisms that we have seen in the area of SOC communications. The first one, keep people inside of the common workbench, inside of the common tool that the SOAR is providing in order to communicate with the users. That is a decent approach. However, one of the things that we have noticed quite a bit is that whenever an incident happens and there is a need in order to initiate communications across the organization to know about that incident, there is a need and there is a desire to open up those communications to external teams. So we have seen a rise of usage in the communication capabilities to use some of the third-party chat solutions like Microsoft Teams, Slack, Zoom, any of these the communication solutions out there, to use that as a mechanism to share data and status of an investigation and research across multiple teams in the organization. So we have seen an evolution that started with pretty much being a SOC-centric. Only the SOC knows all of these components, to extend beyond the SOC in the communication with some of these external solutions that are becoming highly popular in security operation teams. So we are seeing a trend going into that direction for sure, because it allows higher collaboration and communication. So we see them both, John. So hopefully that answered those questions.
Oh yeah, you covered it. So let me ask you one more question. So another kind of underappreciated aspect of SOAR is orchestration. And really what you were just suggesting is the orchestration across communication tools. But let's take it back to XDR. There's this notion of open XDR, and open XDR means a vendor has their XDR, but they can accommodate other data sources, respond to other systems. That sounds an awful lot like orchestration to me. And I think SOAR has some XDR has some limitations there. So tell me what you think about orchestration for XDR versus orchestration for SOAR.
It's a very it's a very thin line that you see of the differences between both of them. And why I said thin line is because it's not really the technology, but it's really the content, right?
Yes.
It's really the content that you have. Like an XDR system, cool, send an API call to a third-party system and get the data, right? No problem whatsoever from that component. But now can the XDR system perform complex data manipulation? So like a data set, like a normalization in order to do certain pieces that you need in order to normalize data across multiple EDRs, for example. It might not, and this is where we saw the challenges from like the area of the XDR with the basic ability to communicate with system A or B versus like the next generation SOAR technologies and even the legacy SOAR technologies that allow you to have this, not only the communication, sending that API call, sending that action, maybe you want to execute a PowerShell script or something along those lines, and bring all that data together and be able to correlate it and make sense out of it in order to take the next step. And that is the component that we see the differences between them. Like going back into the beginning of the question, open XDR versus like SOAR orchestration capabilities. Yes, some of them have basic orchestration capabilities to send component A, B, and C into it, but lack the entire framework in order to actually make sense out of the data, make logical representations out of the data, even correlate multiple data sets together. So the extensibility of that component is the differentiating factor out of it. And of course, going back into one of the earlier points that you made, is scale. Scale has been one of the pieces that has been highly important with the customers that we talk to, because not just because you can ingest data at high rates makes you scalable in the area of orchestration, but how many orchestrating actions can you execute at one point of time to handle the large number of events? So that is another component that has been a differentiating factor between like OpenXDR and the area of SOAR itself. So those two things itself. There is, like I said, a very thin dotted line into the capabilities, but when you dive deeper into the details, there is a lot of differences between it, including going back to the beginning, the content as well. The content, which is a lot of the security content into how you connect to 100 different type of vendors. How are the examples into connecting into different technologies? What are some of the most known patterns that you see out there? And those are the things that also make a big difference with people using the technologies itself.
Yeah, that's spot on again. I'm reminded of the quote from Bruce Schneier, who's a pretty famous security personality. And he said that security is a process, not a product. I would say XDR is a product that's trying to integrate some processes, but it's going to be limited. It's going to be within a box, whereas SOAR was designed around processes. And so when you're integrating these data sources, you're integrating them into a process. I think that's much more of a challenge for XDR vendors.
Absolutely, yes. The content is key for success, right? Otherwise, like you will talk about like RPA becoming like a SOAR, right? In that case, in which they can do automation, but they lack the content, right?
That's right.
So yes, it's spot on.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Marco. Dallas, do we have any questions from the audience?
Yes, so we actually had quite a few different questions come in. Just before we address some of those questions, I just wanted to ask Marco, would you mind doing a quick shameless plug about Torq, just to educate the audience what exactly it is, how it can help them, and then I'll jump straight into the questions here.
Oh, excellent. No problem, Dallas. Yes, Torq is a no-code automation platform that has been built for security teams. And a couple of values that Torq provides. Simplicity, for you to not have to have those developers build code in order to build automations. So even if you're a developer, you can still use Torq in order to build automation or bring your components that you have orchestrated for that. Simplicity, number one. Extensibility, like what we were discussing with John, different third-party tools that you have, different components that you have across your ecosystem. You want to be able to orchestrate across all of them. And Torq allows you the capabilities to orchestrate across all of them itself. Doesn't matter if it's used API, SSH, like a PowerShell, CLI, that doesn't matter. Torq allows you to orchestrate across all of them. And then the third component, which I also discussed with John on this one, is the content. That content on how to get started. Otherwise, you have to build everything from scratch, right? We provide a very long list of templates that allows you to see all those repetitive processes, so you don't have to get started from scratch itself. So overall, that and the service that is provided with Torq with security experts makes us a very unique and interesting proposition in the market to help customers automate more. That is what we want bring to our customer set and the value that we provide.
Oh, thank you so much here, Marco. So now the first question that we had from our audience was around what are some of the common data sources that are used by the SOC teams that are the most useful and helpful to detect and respond to threats?
Marco, why don't you start on that one?
Sure. So the first one, EDR, like we were discussing with John, like is one of those big data sources of events that come in. Not only EDR, but also like phishing. Phishing is one of the biggest ones that come up as far as the data source of an indicator of compromise that will be coming into an endpoint. Of course, clouds continues to be one of those high data sources that keep on showing up. Cloud services around like SaaS solutions like identity and access management is one of those big ones because it's a trend on gaining privileges and then going inside of the organization. And then of course like the rest, like network solutions, right? You start looking at other components inside of the organization, maybe even IoT type devices that are giving you some indicators of compromise internally. But the top ones that we see for sure is at the moment like EDR and cloud and SaaS. Those are the three that we see the most.
And let me just add, so we asked a question very similar to this in our recent research. And so I'll give you some of the top sources. The top source was endpoint security data. So very consistent with what you said, Marco. The second was threat intelligence feeds, which you mentioned before. The third was log data from security devices. The fourth was cloud data. And the fifth was network data. So those are the most common sources, but I'll add that it's not like people are collecting one of those. They're collecting all of those and many, many more. I mean, my list goes on. And that's the challenge. We were talking about operationalizing the data from XDR and EDR at the top of this call, but the data sources go well beyond that. And how do you make sense of all those in a timely manner, in an efficient manner? And that's where I'm sure that Marco and the Torq team really can work with customers.
Absolutely, yes. No, spot on. So, John, I had 4 out of 5. No, that's great.
Well, and you mentioned the other one before, so you had them all.
I got a freebie then. Good.
I love all these common themes. And actually, speaking of themes, the next question actually was around, hey, I was essentially promised vendor consolidation, let's say 10 years ago. That clearly has not happened. So how exactly are we able to get all these different sort of best of breed vendors that offer diverse tool sets to really integrate and operate with each other so that I can get my job done?
Let me start on that one. So my first reaction is good luck, because the vendors are competing and they want as much of every dollar security technology dollar that they can get. However, we have seen some changes. So one change is the integration through APIs, which has become much more common these days. Now, an API is limited and you can only do so much. You can only do what the API lets you do, but it's a common interface now. The second encouraging thing I'm seeing is some more open standards in the market. So the big one that was announced this year was the Open Cybersecurity Framework, which is a data schema and is being supported by some large vendors like Splunk and CrowdStrike and Amazon. And so that's very encouraging that we'll have a common schema and we won't have to translate data into different schemas. And then finally, I'd say that that's where SOAR fit in. From its onset SOAR was designed as sort of an integration hub with processes in mind. So again, I go back to the orchestration part of SOAR, and so that's probably the extent of it. There will continue to be promises. It's a very complex area. There's a lot of money already spent, and people aren't going to rip and replace their tools. And therefore, it's a challenge, but I'd say those three things are where I'm leaning.
Excellent. No, thank you so much for that response. And the other question that came in was around where you two were talking about up-leveling the security analyst and the whole staffing shortage. And the audience would like to know, how do you up-level a tier 1 SOC analyst up to, let's say, a tier 2 or tier 3 level with all these tools and threat intel and so forth?
Marco, why don't you start on this one?
No, excellent. It comes down to process, right? The tier 1 analysts, they are very process oriented until they get very skilled at what they're doing. And if you establish the process in a consistent way, then they have a better chance of success. And then once you're looking at consistency, this is where technologies become very important, because there is consistency that you can put on paper and tell them you have to do A, B, C, and D. And then they will do A, B, C, and D. How long does it take them in order to get A, B, C, and D might be the challenge. So technology helps with all of those components and to make those pieces efficient, very efficient, to say now for your SOC analysts, for them to follow a process and to be consistent, now we can take the burden away from them to do manual A, B, C, and D, driving consistency into the investigation process, driving efficiencies into what they're doing, and allow them to focus pretty much at the end into the task at hand, into looking at an event and saying, all right, is this good or not? Here I have all the data sets in front of me. Now I just need to make a determination, which is the human factor that is tough to automate, right? In some components, because there's a contextual component that needs to happen, right? So that this is where automation comes into play, to automate all of those processes that build up into making the analyst more efficient. And this is where technologies like Torq can assist them in order to create that process and the efficiencies and the consistency across what they follow.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I mean, there are really three things you can do. You can automate, you can add advanced analytics, or you can work with a third-party service provider to augment your skill set. And really what we've talked about here are advanced analytics and automation, but I'm sure Torq and Marcos can talk about third-party service providers you work with, and so to me, those are the three things.
Thank you so much. And actually on that theme now, sort of speaking of security automation and a little bit of cost savings here, one of the audience members asked, what are some of the most common metrics that I should be using to justify my existing security tools that I own? And the other comment they made was, I'm already short-staffed and my budget for 2023 is potentially going to be smaller for next year. So how do I justify my spend?
It's an interesting one. The metrics that we see out there a lot are around mid time to remediation, mid time to detection. And those are the metrics that a lot of the security organizations go by. And this is why sometimes, like John said, you might do it internally, you might look at solutions in order to help you increase those metrics from your side, or you might look at external outsourcing in order to help you like managed service providers, right? So tools that can help you increase some of those metrics and make the justification in order to make the investment on some of these areas are tools like that provide automation capabilities like Torq, right? Itself that can help you drive through a metric like, for example, the 11060 metric that is out there. You have 1 minute to detect something. Okay, you have XDR into it. Now you have to meet an SLA of being able to spend only up to 10 minutes of research and investigation. Are you consistently getting there, or do you need assistance in order to get there and your SLAs are being blown up because of that? Now you need technology in order to assist you. That's where you can make the justification in order for you to be more efficient. No, you can take those metrics and say, okay, I need to be more consistent in my 10-minute response based on my SLA that I have created. Therefore, tools like Torq can assist me to be consistent and get there. In a much faster fashion, in a much more efficient way as well, to get to the point in which under 60 minutes I want to remediate, which can also be an automated cycle that can make you more efficient from that angle. So multiple things that can be used in order to provide those, and those metrics. Of course, now that you're using a technology for that, those metrics should be part of every product that shows you the mean time to remediation, the time savings based on execution, and all of those things that you can bring back to your management and then show the value that you're getting out of a solution. But it all comes down to what are your SLAs, what are your metrics, and what is the current states that you have in your operations team. And that's what CISOs are looking for, mainly around the value that they're going to get out of their operation team, out of the investment that they will make on top of it.
And I just add that you can also look at throughput. So the number of investigations being done by an analyst, the number of cases managed by analysts, the number or the percentage of alerts that you can now triage versus the past where you had to ignore those alerts. So things like that are important too.
Oh, excellent. Well, hey, thank you both, John and Marco, for your time. All of your questions and insights have been very helpful here. So we have no further questions at the moment. So with that, I think we're going to wrap things up. And again, we appreciate your time and really want to thank everyone in attendance here today. So thank you so much, and everyone have a great day.